Welcome everybody to another episode of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung, and today we're going to be discussing a transaction, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the Miami Dolphins have made some moves, and they're moves that honestly has me scratching my head a little bit. We'll get into all of that. We're going to talk about the Dolphins signing Isaiah Wynn, a veteran offensive tackle from the New England Patriots, a former first-round draft pick, too. And then we'll discuss some of the undrafted free agents that, honestly, one of them is more shocking than anything of all because I thought that he was going to make a big impact, and it turns out the Miami Dolphins disagreed because they dismissed him pretty quickly. So we'll go into all of that, but before we do that, just real quick, want to mention that this show is brought to you, as always, by our friends over at You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix is the complete automotive wheel solution. Ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb? You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, or curb rash. Or maybe your wheels are faded or peeling. You don't need to replace them, as You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands. They also offer performance upgrades, window tinting, and even suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at ubrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms like You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and get started customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. This show is also brought to you by PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each, it's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. They give you free squares, special Taco Tuesday promos, Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose, or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. With offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you are any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, that's promo code 5, spell that out, FIVE, go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the real big news, and I use the term loosely because as far as big news goes, I'm not going to go ahead and say that this is going to be the signing of the century or anything. So the Miami Dolphins decided, after having Cameron Fleming in for a visit and everything, I really thought they were just going to wait until they went ahead and brought in the Byron Jones money, but I guess they're just going to be able to afford this guy now. So the Miami Dolphins went ahead and they signed offensive tackle Isaiah Wynn. So he's a former first-round draft pick of the New England Patriots. He was selected in 2018, and supposedly he had a lot of talent, he had a lot of potential, but ultimately it never actually came to fruition, partly due to injuries and partly due to the fact that I guess he just couldn't grasp the scheme of the New England Patriots blocking style. I really don't know what ultimately happened with him other than the fact that he was just constantly injured and stuff like that, but either way, most New England Patriots fans are not losing any sleep over this. So the funny thing about this whole thing really is that the Patriots actually opted to pick up Isaiah Wynn's fifth-year option ahead of 2021, and he ended up getting $10.4 million guaranteed as a result. But at the end of that season, they had already decided to flip Isaiah Wynn with Trent Brown so that way they were playing the opposite position. So whereas Isaiah Wynn all this time had been playing left tackle for the Patriots, and supposedly, according to some articles that I've read on this guy, that he was doing okay there before his injuries. But then they went ahead and they got Trent Brown, and so now Trent Brown is playing left tackle, and Isaiah Wynn went to right tackle, which, by the way, again, is a reminder, I think not that anybody needs it, the Miami Dolphins actually have their need at right tackle, not left tackle. So unless they're going to be using Isaiah Wynn as a backup to Teron Armstead in the event that something happens to Armstead, I don't see where there's any value here. Because, as it turns out, as a right tackle, Isaiah Wynn was a miserable experiment for the New England Patriots. He got benched multiple times in 2022 for just not being good at his job at right tackle. So with all that in mind, the fact that the Miami Dolphins are going to go ahead and sign him now, unless you're going to be using him as a left tackle backup for Teron Armstead, which granted, I understand the need for that because it's very likely that Teron Armstead at some point ends up getting injured somehow, but that's not exactly the best option I can think of. Again, I personally, and this is just based on my own personal having watched the guy, Kendall Lamb, I think, would be just fine as a backup to Teron Armstead, because I feel like if Teron Armstead goes down for the entire season, we kind of have bigger problems than just who's going to be the emergency backup to our all-pro left tackle. Now, just for the sake of making sure that I give full disclosure, according to an article that I've been reading on Isaiah Wynn, it was on Boston.com, there are teams that were looking at Isaiah Wynn as a potential guard option, but that ultimately hurt his value for the New England Patriots. And also for him, because now Isaiah Wynn being looked at as a guard, he's obviously not going to be making offensive tackle money. Whatever the Miami Dolphins ultimately gave him, as of now I'm recording this, the actual contract numbers have not come out as of yet, but I'm sure that we will see them soon. One person guessed in OnlyFins, again, this is just a guess, just from a random person. No actual information is actually here, but the assumption is that it's something along the lines of 1 year, $2.1 million or something along those lines. Which, if Isaiah Wynn actually does miraculously work out, it would be great for the Dolphins. But other than that, I mean, it's obvious that this is not being treated as a very serious move. I would still be all over Cameron Fleming. That's just my personal opinion on it. But so here we have Isaiah Wynn, and I guess if nothing else, if he doesn't compete at tackle, which I still think that they might actually try to make him play right tackle again, I think they may decide that, well, maybe Butch Berry and Frank Smith and whoever else you want to throw out there basically are going to be able to get something out of him that the New England Patriots weren't able to. I don't think that's going to be the case because Isaiah Wynn went to New England, which New England seems to be able to churn out really good offensive linemen out of nothing like it's going out of style. So maybe the Miami Dolphins see him as a possibility at guard. If that is the case, then I guess if nothing else, he can compete with Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones and whoever else you want to throw out there to make it so that, oh, well, we might be able to fix the left guard problem. And granted, don't misunderstand me. If the Miami Dolphins manage to fix the left guard problem, then I will be very happy. It doesn't fix right tackle, but if they can at least fix one offensive line position, then okay, I'll go ahead and I'll give them some credit for that, simply because I feel like one is better than none at all. So left guard fixed, okay, great. Isaiah Wynn, come on down. I don't think he'll stick around. That's just my personal opinion, but if he does, then congratulations, the Miami Dolphins were able to find an acorn out of another former first-round pick. So they can replace Greg Little with the next Greg Little, but maybe he actually works out, unlike Greg Little. I'm not holding my breath on that simply because what little tape I've seen of Isaiah Wynn is not exactly the prettiest thing in the world. The 3 yards per carry crew, I know for a fact, they all think that Isaiah Wynn is a big mistake. Not everybody agrees with them, and I have to respect that, because even though I have a preference for the 3 yards per carry crew because I work with them personally, that does not mean that they are always right either. I'm going to defer to them. They know a lot about football, but that doesn't mean they bat 1,000. Just nobody really bats 1,000. Even the greatest NFL minds, even Adam Schefter, sometimes gets a report wrong every once in a while. So we're going to go ahead and see what the Miami Dolphins have planned for Isaiah Wynn. Maybe they turn him into a guard and he competes with Liam Eichenberg. Maybe he competes with Austin Jackson. Maybe they're just looking for the best offensive tackle depth they can possibly find. Whatever the case may be, we shall see when training camp rolls around, because I don't know. I don't like the move, me personally, but here we are. All right, now the other news of the day, and we'll go ahead, and this will be the final half of the show here, is that the Miami Dolphins actually made 3 separate moves on the offensive line. So they actually waived 3 players. You ready for this? They waived offensive lineman Alex Jensen, offensive lineman DJ Schaaf, and offensive lineman Jarrett Horst. Okay, so does anybody remember just a few shows ago where I went ahead and I went on record saying that I think that Jarrett Horst could actually be somebody? And Chris Kaufman of the 3 yards per carry crew, he basically said the exact same thing, was that there was a certain violence to his game. Like, he was basically Richie Incognito reincarnated almost. He had not injury problems. He had serious penalty problems dating back to college, but he always fought to the very bitter end, and he was always more than willing to throw the defenders onto the ground and just kind of like be the guy, the big bully on the field at all times. Now, I thought to myself, well, somebody like that might actually be able to compete for a guard spot. I think that might be something the Miami Dolphins could take advantage of. But apparently they disagreed, because they went ahead and they just cut him. The rookie minicamp went on, he did his thing, and they said, thanks, but no thanks, we are moving on from you. Now, I don't understand why. It just seems to me when it comes to the offensive line, like, part of me wants to believe that these guys know what they're talking about, right? I want to believe that Butch Barry is a good offensive line coach. I want to believe that Frank Smith knows what he's doing. I mean, if they literally went to him and said, listen, you need to go help Matt Applebaum during the regular season because he's not getting the job done all by himself. They basically appointed him to be an assistant in that room, and he was not able to actually complete his offensive coordinator duties because he was spending so much time trying to get the offensive line up and running. So you would think, and Mike McDaniel too, by the way, Mike McDaniel, he also has some background in the offensive line. So you would think, with all that in mind, that somebody in that room would be able to have some idea of what is required to make a good offensive line and who is considered a good offensive lineman and who is not. Now, perhaps we, as people on the outside looking in, do not have the full extent of the knowledge that these Miami Dolphins coaches have. Maybe they looked at Jarrett Horst and said, you know what, maybe he's just too undisciplined, he doesn't have good footwork, he's not as strong as he looked. I don't know. But it just seems to me that every time we look at a player and think, this might actually do something, they go ahead and they cut that guy and they decide to keep somebody who we're just scratching our heads wondering, why are they keeping this dude in particular? What is it about this particular player that we seem to see him fail and fail and fail over and over again, but they just keep on hanging on to him like there's something worth investing in? We could make that argument with Austin Jackson. Now, with Austin Jackson, again, the 14 snaps in New England. I'm not going to harp on that all over again. But at the very least, I can understand why they're trying to invest in him. There was a first-round draft pick involved. He supposedly has great athleticism. He's still one of the youngest players on the team, in spite of the fact he's been here for now going on 3 years. So all of that, I understand it. This is also, what is it, Austin Jackson's 4th year in the league, and now already he's still one of the youngest players in the NFL. That's kind of crazy. I understand that. I understand why they're deciding to keep him on there. But even with that in mind, I'm still trying to look at this and think, why are they keeping on all these not so good players? Like, for instance, I'll go ahead and just go down the roster here real quick, because there's a few names on here that I'm wondering, why are they hanging on to this player so hard, even though we've all seen him play, and it just doesn't seem like he's got it. So just to give an example, I'll go ahead and give you this example. Keon Smith. Keon Smith was one of the kids who were in training camp. He's 24 years old, came out of Fayetteville State University. He's a 6'5", 311-pound tackle, and so you would think, okay, maybe there's some athletic ability there. Well, we watched him play. He was in training camp. He wasn't good there. He was in preseason. He wasn't good there. And the Miami Dolphins still have him on the roster. They decided to keep him. They wanted to keep him over all these other players. Again, a Jarrett Horst, I think, could have been a really good player because he has at least one special element to his game that seems to be missing throughout the rest of the offensive line. Just that willingness, that desire to win and just absolutely dominate another player. I look at all these traits and I think that's perfect for an offensive lineman. That's the kind of thing you want. Someone like a Richie Incognito who, in spite of all of his personal and mental and emotional flaws that held him back, he was, as a football player, a fantastic football player. He was a really good guard. And the Miami Dolphins, once they let him go because of the whole Bullygate scandal thing, they couldn't replace him properly. They just couldn't. And so once he left, that element was missing from that line, and the Dolphins' offensive line was just not great after that. We've been struggling for a long time to get a good offensive line. That's why we went out and got Teron Armstead. That's why we went out and got Connor Williams and moved him to center. At least they knew that much. They seemed to see something in Connor Williams as a center that apparently the Cowboys did not, because they put him at guard, and Cowboys fans were mixed on what they felt about him. Some people thought that he was being misused. Some people thought that he was just getting a bad rap because of his penalties, and some Cowboys fans were just happy that he was gone. Some of them were not so happy. The Dolphins fans now are very happy to have him. But it took the offensive line coaches to see this guy and say, you know what? You're not a guard. You're a center. And it worked. But then they do things like this. And I'm so confused because I see guys who are on this roster like Keon Smith, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way they see this guy as something special, right? Like, what is it about him that is even remotely interesting? They drafted Ryan Hayes with the 7th round draft pick. Again, I get it. It's a flyer. You don't really know what you're going to get in the 7th round. You may get absolutely nothing at all. It may as well be another undrafted free agent. So, but they drafted him out of everybody else out of Michigan. So maybe they see something in him. I don't know what they see is the problem. I don't understand it. I personally am not thrilled with that move either, but I have to just keep in mind that in a couple of weeks, just a few weeks from now, we're going to be able to see what the Miami Dolphins do with the rest of that Byron Jones money, because that's what they're going to be waiting on, I think. It's about $13 million in cap that they don't currently have access to, but apparently they can sign Isaiah Wynn. I don't know. I just don't get it. I'm not a fan of it. Maybe none of that money that they're giving Isaiah Wynn is guaranteed. Maybe this is just a desperate last chance. Here you go, kid. Best of luck to you. Let's see what you can do kind of contract. And if that's the case, then whatever. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, because at least then the Dolphins can cut him and they're not going to be in any kind of cap disadvantage. I would prefer to be able to cut somebody and have the flexibility to cut them without having any dead cap the next season, even as small as it might be. I just don't see the need to bring in veteran players that don't have at least some flashes of good play. They keep bringing in these injured players and assuming that everything will work out great. I understand it. I get the logic of it. You can get some really good players at discounts because of their injury history. Teron Armstead is a perfect example of that. He should have been given much more money, and Alfredo Arteaga even mentioned that the Miami Dolphins really got him as a bargain, even as expensive as his deal is, at least on paper. But in reality, based on the actual offensive tackle market, Teron Armstead was signed really cheap, and it had a lot to do with A, his age, and B, the fact that he's often injured. So now they're bringing in Isaiah Wynn, and he's also often injured. Are we going to get a discount on him as well? Maybe Cameron Fleming is wanting more than we are expecting because he had a really good season, and now he's trying to cash in on it. I am still hoping and crossing my fingers that Cameron Fleming ends up coming to the Miami Dolphins. He comes to be reunited with Butch Barry, and that way he can at least get some kind of career going with us, and then we will be able to count on him if all else fails. Because I still am not a fan of just tossing Austin Jackson out there and saying, you know what, he's the guy that we're going to have moving forward at right tackle. I want to believe that there's something there. I just don't know. I have to see it first to believe it. I saw the 14 snaps. That's why I'm even willing to give him even a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. But as of right now, I am not happy with how these Dolphins are handling the offensive tackle position. Isaiah Wynn is not the solution for me, and I don't know why they seem to think that he is. Maybe I'm misreading all of this. Maybe he's not being looked at as a solution. Maybe, like I said before, this is just a let's see what you can do flyer, and they'll move on from him after a few weeks in training camp. If that's what they ultimately decide to do, then I will not be even a little bit upset, because I would be saying, okay, I get it. They're trying to do their homework. They're just testing everything out. Best of luck to you. But the Miami Dolphins better come up with some kind of a solution other than just hoping and praying that Austin Jackson turns out to be the guy. Now, if he ends up working out, I will eat all of this crow, and I will eat it happily. Put it on a plate for me and give me a fork. I will happily just munch it down. But I am not going to hold my breath on that. That's going to be it for this show. Thank you all so much for listening. If you haven't already done so, make sure you go check out You Brake Wheel Fix if you need to get your wheels fixed, or if you want to get your ride upgraded with suspension modifications or anything along those lines. All you have to do is reach out to Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com, or you can shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter to get an estimate in just minutes. And of course, go to PricePicks.com, use that promo code 5, that's FIVE. If you go ahead and put in $100, they will match your $100 when you sign up using our promo code. You don't even have to touch your deposit until you've bet through all that money. So go ahead, use the promo code 5, FIVE, go to PricePicks.com, get started winning today. We will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Fins Nation.